Hello, Kem here, and here's my final update video on my dual strike Gladiator. Build is absolutely cooking now. We're about 50 to 60 divines invested in, and sitting at level 97 currently. There's still some further upgrades to get, but honestly, with the current setup it's capable of doing all content. I've been running nightmare maps, full cleared simulacrums, and I've tested it out against Uber Eater as well. Even though mechanically I'm pretty bad at the fight, as I generally don't run this, but still managed to get it down, so I was happy with that. So DPS, sitting around the 50 million mark with the tinctures and flasks active. I'm actually amazed at how consistent the tincture's up, and generally it can be maintained for the majority of a boss fight. And this is due to the 20% instant leech that we get from the Ascendancy. So in terms of a comparison to the previous video, this is about 8 times more DPS. So, you know, that was already capable of doing pinnacles and T16s, so yeah, it's feeling pretty juicy now. Defensively, it hasn't changed too much since my last video. It can still struggle with one-shots occasionally if there's a few mods stacked up, but I only tend to notice this in certain situations, like, you know, later waves of Simulacrum against Omniphobia and Kosis, stuff like Soul Eater rares in nightmare maps, or obviously Ubers, which, you know, only certain builds can face tank those anyway. But the fact it's able to full clear Simulacrums is a testament really to its potential, and honestly, for the investment level, I'm pretty happy how the build's turned out overall. So one of the biggest issues with the build I found originally was the clear speed wasn't amazing. When you compare it to a lot of the other meta builds this league, it doesn't quite have that same clear potential, and with Mirage and mechanics like Breach being strong, I wanted to address this. Now I know this skill, you either love it or you hate it, and you don't have to introduce this to the build by any means. But as Flicker Strike is the most played build on the Gladiator Ascendancy this league, and I'm a bit of a Flicker Strike enjoyer, I figured I'd implement it. The dual strike build isn't very socket starved, so I had a few slots to play with, and because the DPS has hit pretty high numbers now, a 4-link Flicker Strike setup with clear supports still deals with most packs under general mapping situations. Whenever you come across a tanky rare, you just attack with dual strike. I found it's quite a fluid playstyle overall. Or if the map's particularly dangerous and in later simulacrums, I tend to just avoid using Flicker Strike for safety. But for the majority of situations, I just zoom through the map with Flicker Strike, and as long as the servers aren't falling over, it's a pretty enjoyable experience. Okay, so firstly I'm going to go over the skill setup. So the main 6-link, we've got obviously dual strike of Ambidexterity. What I've got imbued onto this is melee fizz damage, so I've added this at level 1 here because I don't think it has the functionality yet to bring that in. You can go with so many different things here, honestly. You can go, you know, with Fortify or Cruelty, or honestly any, so Volatility, Brutality, Ruthless, you could also have level 1, and if it's down here obviously you would just put in maybe melee fizz up here at level 20. So yeah, but this is the main setup, and we're sitting at 52 mil now. And when you compare that to the original video, you see we were at 6.2 mil, so pretty big improvement. Then this is the new setup, and I'm loving this, honestly. Oh, one more thing to mention actually, I went with greater multi-strike as well as an upgrade over just normal multi-strike. I think it's about 14% more damage, so, and it gives that extra repeat, so again, very nice. And it's not too expensive. I think this was about 14 divines, so, you know, compared to Awaken multi-strike, it's much more accessible. So Flicker Strike, again, we've got the 4-link set up in the boots, and I've got level 1 volatility imbued on it. Again, just a bit more DPS if we just flick to Flicker Strike here. So yeah, this gives us an extra 21% damage, which is very nice. So even though we've got Greater Ancestral Call, which really helps with clear, and Melee Splash, now you might be thinking, oh, well, you've already got Melee Splash because of this. But this also gives more area of effect, so just helps with clear really. But if you still find you need more DPS, you can swap melee splash out for brutality, which will give it more damage. And I think you just want to keep this on as well because it just really helps with the clear. In terms of curse, we've got Assassin's Mark and Mark on Hit. In one of my original videos, I had the endgame PoB with Whispers of Doom on, but I haven't actually gone for that anoint yet. Overall, it will give you more DPS, but I'm lazy. I didn't want to press another curse button, so for now, we've just got that in. Dash, just as a movement skill, you can go with Flame Dash here. It's no real, it's a personal preference. And then in terms of our main movement skill, because we've got so much attack speed, Whirling Blades, faster attacks, and then Blood Rage, which gives more attack speed, but also Frenzy Charge on kill and our Life Leech. In terms of auras, we've got Flesh and Stone, Precision, Pride. In terms of min-maxing, you can actually put like a level 4 Enlighten in here and squeeze in another aura somewhere else, like Herald of Purity or Arctic Armor, if you want to get the max hit up a little bit as well. And then in terms of our cast when damage taken setup, we've got Molten Shell with more duration. And then I've got the Flame Golem in here, but if you are going to go for the second curse, I would actually drop this for punishment because, the Flame Golem does struggle to stay alive most of the time anyway. In terms of the tree, not too much has changed since the last video. I think the main additions really are I think the Watcher's Eye was here before, so I've moved this out to here and dropped one of the rare jewels, and then I've come out of this crit wheel here because if you look at the crit chance, we're at 100%, and even without the tincture up, we're at 90%, and without this flask. So if you look at this here, this would give us 17.8% more damage, but this wheel here, for the same amount of point investment, is giving us 22%, and that's without the tinctures and the flasks on. So even with those on, it's just a no-brainer. Like, this is giving us, hardly any damage. So yeah, decided to drop that because it synergizes with this Light of Meaning better as well, which I picked up. So yeah, there's one more thing. I had ailment immunity planned in this build originally, but because I've managed to do all content without it, and I just want to move on to other projects, I've kind of decided against it. But if you did want to get that onto the build, you could. I would just drop 2 of these masteries, maybe like this one and this one, because you can get a bit more mana reservation on the helmet or through Enlighten, and then you can spec those points into here for this extra jewel socket. Or if you didn't want to do that, you could just drop the remaining rare jewel here, but this is giving me my Chaos Res cap and my Impale cap as well, so I've kind of kept with this for now. But yeah, feel free to obviously min-max that a bit further than I have. Okay, so moving on to the equipment now. We've got the Paradoxica in the main hand, which has the Impale and Fizz damage, and also the crit chance. Now, I think I mentioned in the previous video that attack speed doesn't matter here because, Dual Strike uses your offhand attack speed anyway. So I think this is the best in slot for the Fizz variant of the build. You probably could do better than a Paradoxica, actually. I was doing some testing, and if you had a insanely rolled Legion sword, I think you could actually come out with more DPS than this. Also, because they have the implicit of accuracy, you can kind of drop this mastery here, which saves a point as well. So I think if you really wanted to min-max this version, I think you could go for a really well-crafted rare instead of the Paradoxica, but, this definitely does the job. In the offhand, I picked up a synthesized Imperial Claw for, I think it was 1 Divine, and then what I did was I just essence spammed the attack speed essence until I got, I think it was just 2 good affixes with it. I think I hit the crit chance and also the flat fizz, which isn't tier 1, it's like tier 3 or 4. and then I managed to actually Exalt Slam on the split, the hybrid Fizz, and then just crafted on the Fizz and Impale. Again, this isn't like insanely rolled, it was just kind of, maybe a couple of Divines worth of Essences. So overall, this weapon cost me about 3 Divines to craft, and it was just so clear of my other weapon. I think it's about 15% more damage because of that 2.21 attacks per second. It's just pretty insane. In terms of like the rest of the gear, it hasn't changed that much, honestly, since my previous video. So pretty well rolled armor evasion helmet here. Again, nothing crazy, just solid reses and decent armor evasion. Body armor I think is exactly the same as the previous video. I could have pushed for one here with about 3,000 armor and evasion, but again, it was doing the job. I could do the content, so I didn't decide to push it further. Gloves, I think all I've really done here since the previous one is just got an extra rank on the chance to impale on the implicit. Again, you can push for the 2 additional strikes, but because I've got Flicker Strike on the build now, and that's obviously got Greater Ancestral Call, I haven't felt the need to put the currency in to get the 2 additional strikes. So yeah, these will do. Boots, just again, solid all-rounders really, nothing crazy. Amulet, pretty decent. I've got the life regen on the amulet as well. I just wanted to get one solid life regen on the build, so we actually had positive life recovery to offset the blood rage. And then in my first ring slot, this is kind of where I'm just getting my attributes and the rest of my reses sorted really, and that accuracy roll also helps to stay at 100%. And I've got the non-channeling craft on here as well. You can put that on the amulet and the other ring as well if you're having issues with mana still for whatever reason, but honestly with the instant leech, and I'd say as long as you've got, maybe over 100 mana unreserved, I don't think you should have a problem. But yeah, like I say, you can do that if you're still having issues. So yep, just dexterity is the main thing here to get us dex cap to use, well, not dex cap, but at 212, so we can use Paradoxica. And then on this ring, we've got our int, so we can use our claw. And yeah, again, just solid rolls really. And then I've gone for a Rislafa's coil here. I think this probably is one of the best ways to scale the damage. Make sure you get one with the highest percent more maximum and the lowest percent less minimum. And you can, I've seen some pretty insane things people have done here as well with that new Valorb, where you can actually boost these ranges even higher, which is good for min-maxing, but honestly, probably will only give about 5% more damage, so maybe not worth the pursuit, but feel free if you really want to min-max it. Flasks, I think, are pretty much the same. We've got the Divine Life Flask, instant recovery. Then we've got the Jade and Granite for survivability. Diamond Flask, which honestly, you could swap out. I've got this in still, but if you go with the silver, because that gives us Onslaught, again, the DPS does go up, but I think just for consistency with crit, I've just decided to leave this in. And then the Tincture, which gives a lot of damage. As you see, if I untick that, we get about 24% more damage, which is pretty insane. The jewels are the same. You could probably get better ones. If you replace Smite the Weak with Martial Prowess, that would be a little bit better. Makes accuracy easier to hit. We've gone for the Forbidden Flame and Flesh setup as well, Master of Metal, which, yeah, gives us a lot of damage, as you can see. And then just basically capped out what we need with this rare here. We needed a bit more Chaos Res and a bit more Impale, which honestly the Impale I don't particularly need because I could get higher percent on the gloves, but yeah. And then Light of Meaning, which gives us a lot of damage as well. So what are some ways to scale this build even further? So when it comes to the Fizz version, You can obviously get the ailment immunity and Storm Shroud, like I mentioned before. More min-maxed rares, just better rolled Eldritch implicits, things like that. You can also go for a better crafted weapon, again, like I mentioned in the previous section. You can also look into a Slayer variant. So in one of my previous videos I compared all of the 3 ascendancies, and I still think the Slayer with more than skill Forbidden Jewels will probably be the best all round in terms of, you know, tank and also still having a DPS to do Ubers and all the content. You can also look into Mage Blood and the new belt variants as well, but I haven't looked too far into that because for the investment, the Rislathers is just really strong. When I was looking on PoE Ninja as well, just comparing with some other builds, it seemed like 2 different variants stood out quite a lot that could probably scale, well, I think they'll definitely scale more than the Fizz version with investment, are the Ephemeral Edge ES stacking version and the Strength stack with the Replica Alberons as well. Because both of these address the main downside of the build, you know, the lower max hits, because they have just higher life pools and they have the potential to scale DPS much higher as well with investment. So what's next for me then? So I league started trade for the first time in about 2 years, purely to be able to get this build together quicker, but I realised over the long term of the season I just prefer SSF and the playstyle, so I'll be starting a new build there and working my way back through there. I'm thinking of going with a totem build, but I'm trying to avoid Kinetic Fusillade and Stormburst because there's plenty of other solid guides out there for those builds already, and I've played them both. So stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next video to reveal the plans.